This video has been kindly sponsored by Squarespace, an all-in-one platform for building your own brand and growing your business online. Hello everybody. I have a really large list of different pieces that I want to make that I can't go out and purchase just on my own. A lot of those pieces are either completely vintage, I can't get them anywhere, and other pieces are just sold out from the place that I would like to buy it. So I decided to go through all of the things that I wanted to make and see if I actually wanted to make them, because sometimes I'm like, oh, I would love to make that, and then the time comes where I can make it, I'm like, it wasn't that deep. So I picked and chose, and then I bought some yarn for those projects, and so today I'm going to focus on two of them. The first one is this crochet cardigan. I think it's from Minga, London, and then this one is the Basan sweater from Unif. I think they're both really cute. I think that they will come out really nice and that they'll be pretty easy to do. I think the Basan sweater would be a little bit harder just because of the buttons. It looks like they're crochet buttons, but now that I'm thinking about it, I think I can do like an amigurumi circle and like stuff it a little bit, and then all I have to do is just sew it onto the sides of the cardigan. But I'll get there when I get there. And then on top of that, it's just different granny squares that I add on top of the knit cardigan, and I think they're the sunflower granny squares, but if not, I'll just have to look into different granny squares to see which one resembles these the most. For the Basan sweater, I got this wool blend from Hobbii. It is 80% acrylic, 15% wool, which I'm not gonna lie, I thought it was the other way around when I purchased it. I thought it was like 80% wool, 15% acrylic, but yeah. I know this yarn is a lot darker than the actual sweater. Like if you see this picture of the back of the sweater, it's more purpley, I guess, but I chose this one because this was like the closest yarn I could get to it. Plus it has these little specks and stuff, and I was like, should I add maybe some glitter thread to it or something, but I just decided to go with the black yarn with the specks instead. I made a hat for my fiance a long time ago which had way more specks to it, and I think I got that yarn from Joann's, but I don't know, I just don't know what the yarn is, and Joann's is about to not exist anymore. So I also got this red for the borders and for some of the granny squares, and then I couldn't get any other colors for this specific yarn, so I had to dig deep in the Hobbii interwebs, and I ended up finding these two, which are 70% cotton and 30% alpaca. These will be for the granny squares specifically. I think I did a good job with these colors because it looks pretty identical to the colors on the Basan sweater. And then I also got this purple for the one corner in the front panel of the cardigan. I also bought yarn to redo my star and moon sweater, but I think I'm gonna do that a separate time because I don't want to make 3 sweaters right now. It's just a lot. So I'm gonna go ahead and get started. I first started with making a swatch for the cardigan, then went ahead and first worked the back panel with a cast on of 80 with red yarn. I worked 3 rows of just knit stitches to make a garter stitch border on the bottom before switching to my black yarn for the rest of the project. Since I've been trying to watch more films these days, I made a little letterbox list that ranks all the movies I want to see. So when I use a randomizer, it chooses a random number, and whatever number gets chosen, I have to watch the movie that correlates with that number, and that movie this time was Mermaids. Mermaids is about a woman and her 2 daughters that are constantly moving whenever the mother has an issue or a bad breakup or even a bad hair day, honestly. And it shows the effects of that on the daughter as well as the lives of all 3 of them, and it's a pretty cozy and hilarious unhinged movie. Also, this sweater that Cher is wearing, oh my gosh, I might have to make that for myself in the future. Here's what the back of the cardigan is looking like so far. I do like the specs that the yarn has been giving me. I do wish there was a lot more, and of course it was more colorful, but you know, it is what it is. This is the yarn that I could find, and it's doing what it can, you know? So far, I think I've done 70 rows, so I think I might be getting closer to where I have to cast off, and then I can go ahead and start the front panels. I just finished the back panel. It looks really small, but it is the right size. As you can see, it stops kind of like right here on my arms. which is accurate to the picture that I'm going off of. And I measured it and it's up to 19 inches. So I think it'll probably go up to 21, 22 inches after I block it. Right now, all I'm gonna do is start with the front panels. I haven't made a cardigan in a while, so I'm gonna look at my old cardigan videos, but I think what I do is take the cast on number and divide it by 2, and then probably like add like a couple stitches to it so that it'll be enough to kind of get to like right here. But if I button it up, it won't be like pulling or anything. It'll just be like perfectly centered. Maybe I'll do 1/3, maybe 2/3 of the amount of this, but I have to figure it out. So when I do, I will let you know. I'm also realizing that this edge right here could potentially be crocheted, because I could like do like a crochet ruffle border here and then have holes in the middle for the buttons and just work it down and around the cardigan. And for mine, I did this garter stitch edge, but I already did the whole back panel, so I'm not going back. So what I'm gonna do is just do this for the back panel too, and then crochet the sides and just start it over here so it can kind of work into it, but it is what it is now. For the front panels, I casted on 36 and worked up 104 rows. While working on the front panels, I listened to the Poppy War audiobook on Libby, and without spoiling anything, I enjoyed the first half of the book way more than the second. The first half showed a lot of its potential as a story, but in the second half, it kind of falters for me. I understood the themes it was showing, and there's one incident that is inspired by a real-life tragic event that broke my heart, but even then, the book was just alright to me. I didn't really connect with any of the characters, but at the same time, I don't like not finishing books, so I ended up looking up summaries online for the 2 books after this one so I could see how the story concludes, and it kind of made me want to read the last 2 books, so I don't know, we'll see. Another film I watched was Cure, which is about a detective trying to find the culprit of crimes that are happening at random, but the crimes aren't connected in any way besides an X symbol, and the detective later finds out that the killer is using a specific method in getting his victims. The way the movie was filmed, especially with limited amount of background music, made it more realistic and kind of jarring, where the killings would happen right under your nose and you wouldn't realize it was happening at all. It's a really good movie and I recommend it if you're into thrillers. I think I have lost my mind. So I finished my back panel, and then I finished this front panel, and then after that I did a whole entire second front panel, and then I was putting them together, and then I went over to look at the picture and I was like, oh wait, I did not switch the colors whatsoever. So I took apart one of the front panels, and then I did some counts. I did 104 rows for the front panel, so I did a little bit of math and I decided to do 30 stitches for each color, and then the top color will get like 40 stitches. So since this one does look longer than the first 2 squares, so these 2 are both going to be 30 stitches each and 30 rows each, and this one's going to be like 44 rows. And so I was like, okay, I took off the rows, I put my needles back in, and right now I'm at 30, so I was about to switch. But I was like, before that, let me take apart the other front panel so I don't have to do it later. And so when I came over here to change the color, I looked over and I realized the front panel is still right here, which means that I took apart the back panel, which is why I got so much yarn back. And now, oh my gosh, now I'm here realizing that I basically just have to do the whole entire project all over again. So I'm gonna skip everything and just show you when all the pieces are done, because this is what happens when you watch too many movies while you knit. You don't pay attention to what you're doing and then everything gets ruined. That's entirely my fault, but it is what it is. I have no choice but to start over. So I will see you in like 2 or 3 days. Alright, it's been maybe 2 or 3 days. I fixed everything and I put it together. So for the front panels, I did a total of 104 rows, just like the back panel, but then I changed the color every 30 rows. So I did the black for 30 rows, and then I did the green for 30 rows, and then the purple I did for 44 rows, and then I repeated that for the other front panel, and then I attached them to the back panel the way I usually do. I have a video on how I make sweaters and everything, and it's the same exact concept. The only thing I didn't do is, well, I kind of left out a little bit of the front panel when I attached it because I wasn't sure if I needed a little bit to make the collar part. So if I have to, I can easily just stitch the rest to the back panel. And if not, I can use this little space right here to like make the collar and everything. And then again, another part that I have in my knitting a sweater video, I attached the sides together, but made sure that there's a hole for my arm. So I tried it on, I put a little stitch marker to where it's comfortable on my body, and then I just sewed the sides together. So now when I put it on, it won't be awkward under my arms or anything, it'll fit perfectly. So now all I'm gonna do is just attach my needles to the armhole and then start making the arms, which are all black, so all I have to do is just attach and knit. I went ahead and attached my needles to the armholes so that I could start the sleeves, which was actually pretty difficult due to the cord I was using. I used the smallest cord I had, which is 13 inches, but since there weren't many stitches due to me wanting to make a fitted sleeve, it was difficult to push the stitches around the needles, so I might need to buy a smaller cord for my knitting needles for projects like this, especially if I don't want to use the magic loop method, because that gets a bit tedious to me sometimes. Hello. Last night I finished the entire base of the cardigan. I showed you that I attached my needles onto the armhole of the cardigan and just started knitting a sleeve, but that sleeve ended up way too big, so I had to take it apart and just knit a separate panel and attach it together later. This one's a lot more accurate to the photo because in the photo it's a lot more fitted. Now all I have to do is just the granny squares and the buttons. For the granny squares in particular, I took a little bit of time to really figure out the sizing for them, because in the photo the yarn that was used to make the cardigan is actually incredibly small because most likely it's been machine knit, but I had a little bit of a hard time figuring out the perfect yarn in terms of the color, the sizing, and the specific materials, and ended up just choosing weight 4 yarn for the majority of the cardigan. But with the granny squares, they're really small in the photo, so I had to experiment with the different crochet hook sizes and I ended up being okay with a 3mm hook. And I actually had to replace the red yarn and the black yarn. Thankfully, I had some weight 3 yarn in the closet. And so if I show you right here, but if I place it right here, you can kind of see how it's supposed to look. In the photo, there's a lot more space above and below the granny square, but this was as small as I could get it, which is nice, but I do wish it was a little bit smaller, but I'm not gonna stay on that too much. And it looks okay, like it's not that, as long as it doesn't overlap with all of the other colors, then it's okay for me. I ended up working on all of the granny squares that day, which didn't take that long, probably just the rest of the day. I think the color scheme of the granny squares is so cute, and the yarn I used made it even better. The two patterns that I liked the most are these two with the red, black, green, and pink. I placed the squares on top of the front panels according to the photo and began sewing them on with the appropriate colors. For some reason, this part was the most therapeutic to me. I don't know, maybe it was satisfying watching the squares slowly stay in place or something. I wouldn't be able to tell you. The cool part about sewing the squares was that I could just weave in the ends without worrying if it would show on the other side or not, since the squares were on top of that specific area. Once all the granny squares were attached, I added a slip stitch border to each inner side of the front panels, then worked another row but with single crochet. For the buttonholes, I just skipped a stitch and continued to single crochet. I also added ruffles as the third row of the button band. So I did record doing the buttons, but I can't find the footage anywhere. But basically, I just used a tutorial on YouTube, which I'll link down below. The buttons were incredibly easy to make. They're just a magic circle single crochet ball for maybe 2 to 4 rows, and then you cut off. I left a long tail on each of the buttons so that I could attach them to the button band like how they are on the photo. I just finished adding all the buttons, and I'm not gonna lie, I'm not really liking this. I have to adjust all of the granny squares because they're a bit way too far to the sides. So I'm gonna have to take them all off of this, which means undoing all of the weaving I just did and then slightly move it more centered so that it'll look better. The buttons are fine. They're just probably bigger than the ones in the picture, which is throwing it off, but maybe it'll look better blocked. I took maybe a week off from the cardigan after being disappointed with how it looked, but once I returned with a relaxed mind, I went ahead and took off all the granny squares, which didn't take as long as I thought it would at all. I was able to reuse all the yarn I used to attach them since they didn't require me to cut anything off, so I made sure to align them more in the center and sewed them back onto their appropriate spots. I think maybe I should have used something to pin the squares down instead of just holding it with my hand, because even if I centered it, it was still moving to other areas as I was sewing. But of course, I'm thinking of this now that it's done and not when I'm working on it, but that's okay because this is just another learned lesson that I can apply to future projects. I just reattached the granny squares and they're looking a lot better. I'm gonna wait until I finish all of the cardigan to work on the buttons. I think I'm gonna try to just sew them down more so they're not like this loose, and then maybe that'll work better because they're fine. It's just they just move too much. So right now I'm going to go ahead and work on the collar, which I'm going to be using these colors for. So I'm going to do black, then green, then purple, then red, then pink, then black again, and hopefully this comes out good. I started the collar on the edge of the button band and just worked 3 double crochets into one stitch, skipped a space and worked 3 double crochets into another stitch, then repeated this down for that row. At the end of the row, I switched colors and then repeated the pattern for a total of 6 rows, each row with a different color. I'm about to get started with the crochet cardigan, but I just wanted to show you the yarn that I'm using. I'm using this Paintbox Yarn Cotton DK, which is weight 3, and I am a little bit worried because I only bought 2 skeins of each color, and I'm really hoping that this is enough to make that cardigan. It is a long cardigan, and with crochet it does take up more yarn than knitting, so I'm just really hoping that this works because I got this yarn online and the store is located in the UK, I think, and it's going to take a long time to get here. So just hope for me that I can finish this with just the 2 skeins of each. I began working on the Minga London cardigan, which I first made a long chain of 66 for the back panel. I measured it out by making sure it stretched to both sides of my shoulders. I went ahead and did the first section of color. I was trying to sort of replicate the stitches on the photo as much as I could, but at the same time I gave myself some grace, and I'm okay with not it looking exactly as long as the colors are matching and the length of the colors are the same as the photo, then I'm okay. So what I did was for the first row I did 1 row of double crochet, and then I switched to the light purple for 1 row of single crochet. I did the black for 1 row of single crochet, and then I did 2 rows of double crochet with the brown. I did 1 row of double crochet with the raspberry. I did 1 row of double crochet with the green, 2 rows of double crochet with the first purple, 1 row of half double crochet with the black, 1 row of half double crochet with the raspberry, and then 1 row of double crochet with the lilac purple. And so this is basically the color pattern that I'm going to be following for every single panel for the cardigan and for the length of the cardigan too. So I'm just going to repeat this for as long as I want to and see, like, whenever it's at a good length, I'll stop and cut off and then do the exact same for the front panels and the arms, which makes it incredibly easy to do, and you can just chill and watch movies while you make it. While working, I watched my next movie, which was Gran Turismo. As someone who played a lot of games on the PlayStation, this was one I actually didn't play. I was a Need for Speed gal, and while we were in Japan last year, this movie was playing in my hotel, and every night I tried watching it, but would always fall asleep like 30 minutes in because I was just so tired from long days of exploring Japan and everything. And so I never got to finish it until now, and it was a cool movie. It's based on a true story of a gamer who fell in love with racing and ended up becoming a race car driver. Besides this movie, I only knew racing through Need for Speed and Cars, so it was nice seeing more into the life of a race car driver. I just finished the back panel and it's looking really good. I made sure it reached just where the top of my thigh is, which is pretty accurate to the photo. And thankfully, I still have some of the purple left over. I think I will have enough purple to do the entire thing because this is the largest panel out of all the other panels in the cardigan, and I'm sure the front panels are probably going to be like this small or something, so it's not going to take up a lot of this yarn. I feel like I might run out towards the arms, but I'm really hoping I'm not. Thankfully I didn't during the back panel, because I have this and then the second skein. I feel like I should be okay. To figure out how long the front panels should be, I just placed the back panel onto my chest and picked out the areas where it would reach the sides of my neck, then counted the stitches from there to the end of one side and got like 22 stitches, but I added a couple of more just to be safe, so I ended up choosing to chain 27 stitches for both of the front panels. And from there I worked on the front panels and the arm panels, which were a chain of 47 to start. I'm currently working on the second arm panel and I've officially ran out of the purple, but the good thing about being someone who always buys way too much yarn is that I can always find an alternative, and the alternative I found is this. It's decent. I think it works fine. The only thing is that this is weight 4, this is weight 3, but because it is thin, I think it kind of works. You can kind of see it's a little bit, yeah, it is pretty similar. So I think I'm just gonna use this and I can finish the sweater normally. Here are all of the pieces, all complete. And since I had to change the purple, if you can see, I thought that the purple was a good match, but I was crocheting in a slightly darker room. So now it doesn't look that bad. Like I think it's fine. It adds more personality to the cardigan, I think, you know. So I'm gonna go ahead and put it together how I usually put crochet cardigans together. So for the front panels, I'm just going to slip stitch it to the top of the back panel, kind of just like this, and then we can go ahead and attach the arms. To attach the arms, I just used stitch markers to hold the panel in place and then slip stitched everything together. I was going to sew the pieces together, but every time I say I'm going to sew pieces together instead of slip stitch them, I end up just slip stitching them because it's faster, but I do think sewing makes the piece look a lot better in the end. The cardigan is all put together, so now what I'm going to do is weave in all the ends and then block it, and then once it's done, or after I block it, then I'm going to add the little tie in the middle. I think I'm gonna maybe add like a little single crochet border on the front parts and the sides, just because it looks a little bit like not finished. But I don't know if I want to do it to where I change the color for like every single section. That would be more accurate to the photo, but I think I just might use one solid color and then do it like that. I used the dark purple yarn to create a single crochet border around the front panels, and then went ahead and threw both this cardigan and the unif cardigan into the wash, then pinned them down onto blocking boards until they were both completely dry. Here is the result of the Minga London cardigan I recreated, and it's kind of perfect. The whole issue with me running out of the purple yarn and having to replace it with a darker yarn, it ended up working kind of perfectly because it blends in well with the design of the cardigan, as if it's like something that was meant to happen. And yeah, especially because I added a little border around it with that darker yarn as well, it fits perfectly and I have no complaints. I didn't show it, but I made 4 ties over here. I think they're about like 60 to 70 chains, and then I just worked down the chain with single crochet to make a thicker tie so that it can hold the cardigan together. And yeah, it's kind of perfect. It's a little wrinkly, but I feel like that's just an easy fix. Like I can throw it in the wash and dryer and it'll be fine. And some of the weaved in stitches keep coming out, but that happens with all my crochet stuff, so it's not that big of a deal. But yeah, this is what it looks like and I'm really happy with it. Here is the unif cardigan that I recreated, and I think this is just incredibly beautiful. I love the color scheme. I think the colors chosen is just it's just so pretty, and they work perfectly together. I will say in terms of the tightness for this one, it is a little bit more tight and it makes it a tiny bit harder to get on, but once it's on, it's fitted and comfortable and it's not that big of an issue. The sleeves are a little bit itchy. That's the only downside of this cardigan. And even though I redid the squares because they weren't perfectly in the middle, it still kind of is like pushing it to the side, especially like these two. And when I was putting them on, I kind of realized that it was a little bit hard to make them like set in the middle, because when the sweater's laying down, I feel like the only way to properly make them sit in the middle is if you would put the granny squares on before attaching all the panels. But then when you put the button band on, it kind of makes it more open. So I would say put the button band on first, then do the granny squares on sew the granny squares onto the front panels, and then attach everything else. And then it might be more centered, but it's not that big of a deal. It still looks really cute to me. The collar is fine. I don't think I'm ever gonna button it up all the way up here anyway. I'm not trying to choke myself with it, but yeah. Oh, also with the buttons, I ended up sewing them tighter onto the button band, which I was kind of afraid of because I thought I wouldn't be able to put the buttons in the buttonholes, but it worked out fine. It does take me some time to put the buttons in, I'm not gonna lie. But once it's in, you know? It looks really cute. This is what the back looks like. And I'm really happy with this. I'm happy with this one and the Minga London one, and I'm happy that I made them. They're really cute. But yeah, they fit perfectly with my wardrobe. I can wear this with like my everyday stuff. Probably not anytime soon because it's getting hot, but maybe in the fall time, this would be a really cute outfit, you know? But yeah, thank you so much for watching. Let me know which one was your favorite down in the comments, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye! Before we go, I want to quickly say thank you to Squarespace for sponsoring this video. Squarespace is the all-in-one platform for entrepreneurs to stand out and succeed online. Whether you're creating a website to offer services, sell products, or to just showcase your art portfolio, Squarespace makes it easy to create a beautiful website and engage with your audience. Squarespace has an incredibly easy website builder, which will help you get started whether you're someone who prefers to use a professionally designed template, or if you want to go deeper into the designing process, Squarespace has the tools to help you build a site just how you'd like it. If you're someone who's wanting to sell products, whether they're physical, digital, or even memberships, Squarespace has all the tools you need to get started, like their commerce tool, which allows you to track orders you've received and even offers ways to develop your shop even further. You can even engage with your audience by sending out newsletters with their email campaigns, which are completely customizable and come with analytics for you to keep track of engagement and help improve your marketing strategies. Go to squarespace.com for a free trial, and when you're ready to launch, go to squarespace.com/ecoshun to save 10% off your first purchase of a website or domain. Thank you again to Squarespace for sponsoring this video.